The galaxy was old. Its stars still shined, but the light was weaker than before. Civilizations had risen, reached their peak, and now many of them were falling into silence. Still, there had always been hope. The United Worlds, the great council of species, believed that as long as they worked together, they could survive anything. But then came the Eclipse Swarm. No one knew exactly where it came from. Some thought it was a creation gone wrong, a weapon made in secret by some forgotten empire. Others said it was born from the void between galaxies, a natural force with no mind and no soul. Whatever the truth was, it consumed everything. Planets, moons, even the energy of stars themselves, it left nothing behind. Entire systems disappeared, their light vanishing as if the universe was swallowing itself. The swarm had no face. It had no voice. It could not be reasoned with, and no message reached it. It spread endlessly like a shadow creeping across the stars. Fleets were sent to fight it. At first, the Council believed that their combined weapons could resist it, but the swarm adapted. For every fleet destroyed, it grew larger. For every weapon fired at it, the swarm changed, learning how to turn that weapon's energy back against its enemies. Decades passed, and the Council's strength faded. Worlds that had stood for thousands of years were gone. The proud races who had believed themselves eternal were now running, hiding, or falling into despair. Inside the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, the leaders of the surviving species gathered. The hall was once a place of glory. Its pillars were carved from crystal mined on the twin moons of Rethan. Its ceiling was a dome that showed the night sky of the Council's homeworld, alive with stars. Now that dome showed only darkness. Whole clusters were gone, and the Council had no way to restore them. The voice of Chancellor Ariel, leader of the Cerethi, echoed across the chamber. "We have lost 1/3 of our territory. Another third will fall within this century. Our fleets are broken. Our resources are drained. If nothing changes, we will not last another 100 years. A murmur spread among the councilors. Some were too tired to argue anymore. Some simply lowered their heads, already prepared to accept the end. But a few still fought against despair. Councillor Drixa of the Corran stood, her forearms trembling with emotion. "We cannot give up. There must be something left. Some weapon, some strategy we have not yet tried." Chancellor Ariel shook his head slowly. "We have searched every archive. We have tested every idea. There is nothing left to try." Then, from the far end of the hall, an older voice spoke. It belonged to Archivist Velarn, one of the last living members of the Gireth, a species so ancient that even the Council itself sometimes forgot their origins. Velarn's body was frail, his skin marked with deep silver lines that glowed faintly with the energy of age. Yet his voice carried strength. "There is one thing left," he said. The hall grew quiet. Velarn's hands rested on the stone table before him. "Long ago, before the Council was formed, before many of your species even walked the stars, there was a war unlike any other. It was not fought against the swarm, but against a species we all came to fear. They were not the largest. They were not the most advanced. But they were dangerous beyond measure. They were called humans." The word was strange to most of the councilors. Some had never heard it before. Others had only seen it in old records, warnings written in the forgotten languages of their ancestors. Councillor Drixa frowned. "Humans? That name belongs to myth. They are gone, if they ever existed at all." Velarn nodded. "Gone, yes, but not forgotten. In the archives of my people, there are records of the wars against them. The humans were wild, unpredictable. Where we built societies of order and control, they thrived in chaos. Where we limited ourselves with rules of honor, they broke those rules and made their own. And where we fought for survival, they fought for victory at any cost." Another councillor, a scaled being from the Threxan worlds, hissed in disapproval. "You speak of monsters. If they were so dangerous, why would we summon them now? Have we not suffered enough?" Velarn's silver eyes glowed faintly. "Because the swarm is worse. We face an enemy that cannot be reasoned with, cannot be stopped by our laws or our fleets. We need a weapon unlike any other, and in all of history the humans were the most dangerous weapon ever seen." The hall erupted in arguments. Some shouted that Velarn was mad, that humanity was extinct. Others whispered that maybe the old archivist was right, that the last hope was buried in the past. Chancellor Ariel raised his voice above the noise. "Silence. Archivist, even if what you say is true, even if humans were once real, they are gone. How can we summon what no longer exists?" Villarn's thin lips curved into something like a smile. Not gone, only hidden. When the wars ended, when the council finally drove them away, they vanished into the dark. Some said they destroyed themselves. Others believed they left this galaxy to wander the void. But my people kept a record, a final message they left behind. A signal locked with codes only the desperate would use. It was meant to call them back. The council chamber went still. You mean to say, Drixa whispered, that you would bring them here? You would call back a species so dangerous our ancestors banished them forever? Villarn's gaze did not waver. Yes, because the swarm does not fear us, but it might fear them. For a long time, no one spoke. The counselors sat in silence, each lost in thought. They were faced with two choices, to fall quietly into extinction or to awaken a threat that might consume them all. At last, Chancellor Ariel closed his eyes. His voice was heavy with sorrow. Prepare the signal. Deep in the hidden vaults of the Council's homeworld, machines older than most civilizations came to life. They had been built in secret, buried under layers of stone and time. Few even knew they existed. Now, as energy poured into them, they began to hum, sending a pulse into the void of space. It was not a simple call. It was a key, opening doors across the galaxy, releasing codes that had been locked away for millennia. The pulse spread faster than light, carried by technologies forgotten by all but the archivists. The counselors watched in silence as the signal left their world. Some prayed it would fail, that the humans would not answer. Others prayed it would succeed, even if it meant their doom. Days passed. Then weeks. The swarm grew closer, devouring more systems. The council began to believe the signal had gone unheard. Perhaps humanity truly was gone. Perhaps the archives were only myths after all. Then on the edge of council territory, near a star long thought abandoned, something appeared. Sensors screamed. A ship had emerged from the void. It was vast, scarred, and silent. Its hull blackened as if it had survived battles against forces no one could imagine. Its design matched no known species. But in the archives, Villarn recognized it at once. A human warship, he whispered. The ship drifted at first, lifeless. Then lights flickered across its surface. Power returned to ancient systems, and inside, somewhere deep within its walls, something awakened. For the first time in thousands of years, humans opened their eyes. The warship drifted in the cold of space, its massive body scarred from battles long forgotten. The council fleets formed a cautious perimeter around it. No one dared approach too closely. The ship was not like anything they had seen in centuries. Its design was simple yet brutal. There were no elegant curves, no shining banners, no signs of peace. It was built for one purpose, war. Inside the council chamber, fear and debate filled the air. It is a trap, said Councillor Merak of the Threxan, his voice sharp and angry. This ship must have been sent by the swarm to confuse us. Archivist Villarn shook his head slowly. The swarm builds no ships. It only consumes. This is no trick. This is human. Silence followed his words. Even those who doubted him felt the weight of the truth. The ship was old, far older than any council design, but it still pulsed with life. And something inside it was stirring. Should we board it? Councillor Drixa asked, her four hands clasped tightly together. Chancellor Ariel's voice was heavy. If what Villarn says is true, we should not risk our own. Let us wait. If they live, they will come to us. Days passed. The warship floated without sending a single message. Council fleets watched it day and night. Then at last the silence ended. A signal pulsed outward from the ship. It was rough, strong, and strange. The council's translators struggled, searching for matches in their oldest archives. At last Villarn stood, his voice shaking as he interpreted the words. This is Captain Elias Vare of the United Terran Defense Fleet. Identify yourselves. The chamber filled with whispers. Humanity spoke again after thousands of years of silence. Chancellor Ariel leaned forward. Answer him, he ordered. A council ship transmitted a message. This is the Galactic Council. We are representatives of the surviving civilizations of this galaxy. We called you? Because we are dying. There was a long pause. The reply came slowly, each word deliberate. You should explain. A meeting was arranged. Not in person, for no one dared set foot inside the human warship. Instead, the council created a virtual chamber, a shared space where minds could meet through light and sound. When Captain Elias Vare appeared, even in digital form, the counselors felt a chill. He was unlike them, tall, broad, his face hard and scarred. His eyes carried something the Council had not seen in their own kind for centuries. Fire. "You summoned us," Elias said, his voice deep and steady. "Why?" Chancellor Ariel spoke first. "Our galaxy is under threat. A force known as the Eclipse Swarm is destroying everything. We have tried every defense. Nothing has worked. We sent out a signal of last hope, and you answered." Elias studied them silently for a moment. Behind him, other human figures appeared, officers, soldiers, their faces equally hard. None of them looked weak. None of them looked afraid. "And you expect us to save you," Elias said at last. Counselor Drixa leaned forward, desperate. "Yes, you must understand we have no choice. The swarm will consume us all. We need your strength, your weapons, your will to fight." But Elias did not look moved. His eyes narrowed. "What makes you think you deserve to survive?" The question struck the Council like a blade. Never had any of them asked such a thing. Survival was a right, a goal, a duty. But this human captain spoke as if it needed to be earned. Chancellor Ariel forced himself to remain calm. "We are not asking for mercy. We are offering alliance. You fight with us, and together we may stand a chance." Elias shook his head. "No, if we fight, we do not fight with you. We take command. We lead. Because you do not know war." "You have forgotten it!" Gasps filled the chamber. To surrender leadership to a species long considered too dangerous was unthinkable. Yet there was truth in his words. For centuries, the Council had avoided war, believing diplomacy and unity would always prevail. Now they faced an enemy that did not listen, did not compromise. Counselor Merrick rose, his scales shimmering with anger. "You dare speak to us this way? We summoned you because we were desperate, not because we bow to you." Elias's gaze turned sharp, and for the first time, the counselors felt the weight of what humans truly were. His words came like steel. "Then you will die." The chamber froze in silence. The humans did not speak like diplomats. They spoke like soldiers, cold, honest, without hesitation. That night, the Council debated for hours. Some argued that to give humans power was madness. Others argued that there was no choice. At last, the decision was made. Humanity would be given command of a joint fleet. When the message was sent, Elias did not smile. He did not thank them. He simply said, "Prepare your fleets. We begin immediately." The next days were unlike anything the Council had seen in centuries. The humans did not waste time with ceremonies or politics. They inspected every ship, every weapon, every soldier. Their methods were harsh. Weak ships were discarded. Old traditions were ignored. Where the Council tried to preserve, the humans sought only efficiency. "Your fleets are too soft," Elias told the Council. "You built them for defense, not attack. That is why you failed. The swarm cannot be stopped by walls. You must strike it, break it, burn it until nothing remains." His officers began training the Council soldiers. The difference was immediate. Where Council soldiers had been careful, humans demanded speed. Where Council officers gave warnings, humans gave orders. Discipline was absolute. Mistakes were punished. Fear was broken down, replaced by raw determination. At first, the Council species resisted, but as the days passed, something strange began to happen. For the first time in generations, they felt strength returning. The humans reminded them of something they had forgotten: the will to fight. One evening in the Council chamber, Chancellor Ariel spoke privately with Elias. "You do not fear the swarm," the Chancellor said quietly. Elias looked at him with steady eyes. "Fear is not useful. We calculate. We prepare. And then we destroy." "But you have not seen it," Ariel whispered. "It devours stars. It cannot be reasoned with." Elias leaned forward. "We fought enemies like that long before you were born. The question is not what it can do. The question is, what are you willing to do to stop it?" The words sank deep into Ariel's heart. For centuries, the Council had lived with limits, rules of honor, codes of restraint. But now those limits seemed like chains. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the swarm continued to spread. Planets fell, systems vanished. Time was running out. The humans prepared the fleets for a test, a first strike against a small fragment of the swarm. The Council watched with dread. Their fleets had fought such battles before and lost. But this time, under human command, the plan was different. "Do not meet them head-on," Elias ordered. "You must cut them apart piece by piece. Force them into traps. Make them chase you. Then burn them when they are exposed." The battle began. Council ships moved with new precision, guided by human strategy. They lured the swarm into narrow regions of space, then detonated asteroids packed with explosives. They unleashed energy weapons not to destroy but to drive the enemy where the humans wanted them to go. Finally, when the swarm was trapped between collapsing stars, the humans gave the order. Entire moons loaded with fusion warheads were hurled into the heart of the enemy. The explosion lit the void brighter than a sun. When the light faded, the swarm fragment was gone. For the first time, the council had seen victory. In the chamber, voices rose in astonishment. Councillor Drixa whispered, "They did it. They truly destroyed it." But Elias did not celebrate. His face remained hard. That was only a fragment. You have no idea how vast the swarm truly is. This was only the beginning. The councillors stared at him. Some felt hope. Others felt fear. Humanity had shown them that the impossible was possible. But at what cost? Ariel watched Elias closely. He realized the truth. The humans had not returned as saviors. They had returned as warriors. And warriors did not fight for mercy. They fought to win. And as the fleets prepared for the next battle, the council could not help but wonder, had they saved themselves, or had they summoned something even more dangerous than the swarm? The council chambers were no longer filled with silence. For the first time in centuries, voices carried not despair but cautious hope. The recent victory against a fragment of the swarm had changed everything. Civilizations that had been ready to accept extinction now whispered about survival. But alongside the hope was something else. Fear. Every counselor had seen the battle. The humans had led it with ruthless efficiency. They had turned entire moons into weapons, destroyed worlds without hesitation, and sacrificed thousands of ships without regret. Where the council had fought to preserve, the humans fought to destroy. "They are too dangerous," Councillor Merak of the Threxan hissed during a private meeting. His scales rippled with unease. "Do you not see? They defeated the swarm, yes, but if they ever turn against us, they will destroy us just as easily." Councillor Drixa lowered her gaze. "And if we do not let them lead, the swarm will destroy us anyway. There is no choice." Chancellor Ariel listened in silence. He understood both sides. The humans were terrifying. But extinction was more terrifying still. On the human warship Resolute, Captain Elias Vare stood before a vast screen showing the galaxy. His officers surrounded him, each reviewing endless streams of data, star charts, fleet movements, and swarm paths. One of his lieutenants, a woman named Kaelin, looked up. "The council is still resisting our methods. They hesitate at every command. They argue over every sacrifice." Elias's eyes remained fixed on the screen. "They have forgotten how to survive. Fear made them weak. We will remind them." Kaelin frowned. "And if they resist?" Elias's voice was cold. "Then they die. The galaxy has no place for hesitation." The next weeks were filled with training. Council soldiers, once proud of their traditions, found themselves broken down under human command. "Your weapons are toys," a human instructor barked at a group of Sarathi warriors. "You fight with honor, but honor does not stop a swarm. You must fight to win, not to look noble." The Sarathi, who had once believed themselves masters of battle, struggled under the harsh lessons. Yet little by little they adapted. Their movements became faster, their strikes more precise. They began to understand what the humans meant when they said war was not about pride, it was about survival. In the council chamber, Archivist Valarn addressed the leaders. "You see now why our ancestors feared them. The humans think differently. Where we see rules, they see tools. Where we see limits, they see opportunities. That is why they were banished. But now that difference is our only chance," Merak hissed in anger. "You speak as if they are our saviors. But look at them. They do not care for life. They burn worlds as if they are fuel. What happens when the swarm is gone? Do you think such creatures will simply leave us in peace?" Valarn's silver eyes glowed faintly. "Perhaps they will. Perhaps they will not. But the choice is simple. Without them, we are already dead." The humans did not waste time. They demanded full control of strategy. Fleets were divided into units, each given specific roles. Some were decoys meant to draw the swarm into traps. Others were fire teams tasked with striking weak points. Entire planets were turned into fortresses, not to defend, but to explode if necessary, taking the enemy with them. When the council protested, Elias gave the same answer every time. Survival has no price too high. Soon the humans revealed their first great plan, to strike directly at a swarm breeding cluster. It was something the Council had never dared. The clusters were deep within enemy territory, and the swarm guarded them with endless numbers. But if the clusters were destroyed, the swarm's growth would slow. "This is madness," Counselor Drixa whispered when she heard the plan. "No," Elias said firmly. "This is war." The fleets moved out. Council ships trembled with fear, but the humans guided them with iron discipline. For weeks they traveled through dark systems, always hiding, always preparing. Then at last the cluster appeared, a massive web of living structures wrapped around a dead star, pulsing with terrible energy. The swarm came to defend it. Billions of shapes moved through space, each a fragment of the endless shadow. The battle began. Under human command, the Council fleets moved like never before. They struck and retreated, split the enemy apart, and drew them into narrow fields of fire. Massive mines hidden in asteroids exploded as the swarm pursued. Plasma storms lit the void, tearing through the enemy. But still, the swarm pressed on. It seemed endless. Then Elias gave the final order: release the fires. Counselors watching from afar gasped in horror as the humans ignited entire planets. The surface of one cracked open, releasing oceans of lava into space. Another shattered into pieces, each fragment carrying warheads that detonated in sequence. The swarm was torn apart, burned, crushed. At last, the cluster itself was destroyed, the dead star collapsing in a wave of fire. When the battle ended, silence filled the council chamber. Victory had been achieved, but at a cost that shook every civilization to its core. "They destroyed 3 planets," Merak whispered, his scales pale. "3 worlds gone forever." "But the swarm is weakened," Drixa said, though her voice trembled. "For the first time, we have struck them where they breed." Chancellor Ariel closed his eyes. "For the first time, we have hope." Yet hope was mixed with fear. The humans had shown them power, but also ruthlessness. Some began to question whether the cure was worse than the disease. Late at night, in the quiet of the archives, Valarn studied old human records. He read stories of their wars, their victories, and their destruction. Always the same pattern. Wherever humans fought, nothing was left unchanged. He whispered to himself, "They are not saviors. They are storms." On the warship Resolute, Elias met with his officers. "This is only the beginning," he told them. "The swarm is vast. To destroy it, we must do what the Council fears most. We must burn everything it touches. There will be no safe havens, no untouched worlds. Either they fight with us or they die with the swarm." His officers nodded, their faces grim. They had lived through wars before. They knew what it meant to be called monsters by those who needed them most. News of the humans spread across the galaxy. On distant worlds, ordinary citizens whispered of their return. Some called them saviors, others demons, but all agreed on one thing. Humanity was the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever known. In the council chamber, Chancellor Ariel gave his final report of the month. "The swarm has been weakened. For the first time, we have struck a true blow, but our survival now depends fully on the humans. Without them, we are nothing." Counselor Merak rose angrily. "And what happens when the swarm is gone? Do you not see? We will have traded one doom for another." Valarn spoke quietly. "Perhaps, but at least we will live long enough to worry about that future." The chamber fell into silence. Every leader there understood the truth. The galaxy had called upon the most dangerous species, and now, whether as saviors or destroyers, humanity would decide their fate. Thus the stage was set. The swarm still spread across the stars, and the humans now led the fight. But in the hearts of every counselor, every soldier, and every citizen, one question echoed louder than all others. When the war ended, if the war ended, what would humanity do next? The galaxy shook with war. The Eclipse swarm had grown for centuries without challenge, consuming everything in its path. Now for the first time it faced an enemy that did not retreat. Humanity had returned, and under their command the fleets of the Council fought with new purpose. But the swarm was vast. Every victory was costly, every system burned, and every step forward felt like a march into fire. From the command deck of the Resolute, Captain Elias Vare stood like a shadow against the great window, his eyes fixed on the endless stars. Around him officers worked in silence, their faces hard. They were used to war, but this was no ordinary war. It was survival against something that had no face, no weakness, no fear. "Report," Elias said, Lieutenant Kalen stepped forward. The swarm has pushed past the outer defenses of Sector 19. 3 worlds have fallen. Our fleets are scattered. If they are not reinforced, the core systems will be exposed within months. Elias studied the map of stars. Red markers spread across the galaxy like blood. The swarm was everywhere, growing faster than the Council could retreat. We cannot defend every system, Elias said calmly. To spread our forces is to lose them. We strike, not hold. Find where the swarm feeds the most. We will cut them there. Kalen hesitated. That will mean leaving entire sectors unprotected. Elias's eyes were cold. Then they burn. Better a few systems sacrificed than the galaxy devoured. The Council was horrified when they heard the plan. You cannot simply abandon our worlds, Councillor Drixa shouted during the next meeting. Those people, millions, will die. Elias's voice was sharp. They will die anyway if the swarm grows unchecked. We cannot save everyone. To win, we must choose who lives and who falls. Councillor Merrick's scales flared with anger. You are no savior. You are a butcher. Elias leaned forward, his gaze like fire. I am a soldier. And soldiers do what must be done. You summoned us not because we are kind, but because we win. Do you want survival or do you want comfort? Silence filled the chamber. The councillors looked at one another, their hearts heavy. Finally, Chancellor Ariel spoke. We have no choice. Give the humans command. The next battle was unlike any before. The humans set their trap in a dead system of collapsing stars. They positioned fleets in hidden arcs while massive reactors were buried within asteroids. The swarm, drawn by false signals, entered the system in a wave of endless bodies. When the trap was sprung, the void erupted. Stars were forced into premature collapse, their gravity ripping swarm formations apart. Asteroids ignited in oceans of fire, their reactors exploding with such force that entire fleets vanished in the blasts. But the swarm did not retreat. It surged forward, adapting, shifting, trying to overwhelm the defenders. The Council fleets faltered. Fear rose among them. Hold the line. Human officers roared through the comms. Do not give ground. Strike where they are weakest. The Council soldiers, inspired by the human ferocity, pressed on. For every ship lost, another struck harder. For every ally consumed, 2 more fired into the heart of the enemy. And at the center of it all stood Elias, his command steady, his presence unshaken. The battle raged for days. At last, the swarm's main body was forced into the gravity of a collapsing star. With a final command, Elias ordered the detonation of the last reactors. The star ignited in a chain of explosions, tearing the swarm into pieces. Silence followed. The void was empty, the enemy gone. The Council celebrated, voices rising in relief. They had won again. But the humans did not cheer. This was only one arm of the swarm, Elias said grimly. The rest is still coming. Across the galaxy, more battles followed. Each was bloodier than the last. The humans unleashed tactics the Council had never imagined. They turned gas giants into firebombs, igniting their atmospheres in waves of destruction. They used entire moons as kinetic projectiles, slamming them into swarm hives. They sacrificed fleets without hesitation, if it meant the enemy would fall with them. The Council watched in horror, yet they could not deny the results. The swarm was slowing. For the first time, the unstoppable shadow was being pushed back, but with every victory, the fear of humanity grew stronger. They are too willing to destroy, Merak warned in secret meetings. One day they will look at us the same way they look at the swarm, as obstacles to remove. Even Drixa, once supportive of the humans, began to whisper doubts. What happens when they no longer need us? One evening, Chancellor Ariel found himself speaking privately with Archivist Valarn. The old Girith sat among his records, his silver eyes glowing faintly. You were right, Ariel said softly. They are dangerous beyond measure. But without them, we would already be gone. Valarn nodded slowly. That is the curse of humanity. They are both salvation and doom. To summon them is to choose survival over peace. Do you regret it? Valarn's eyes closed. I regret only that we had no other path. Meanwhile, on the Resolute, Elias prepared his greatest plan yet. The swarm's main body approaches the galactic capital, he told his officers. If it reaches the core, everything ends. We cannot fight it directly. We must lure it into the abyss, Kalen frowned. You mean the Black Cluster? Elias nodded. Yes, we will lead them into the cluster and collapse the space around them. It will erase everything, enemy and ally alike. Captain, Kalen whispered. That would mean sacrificing our fleets. No one will survive. Elias's gaze was steady. War demands sacrifice. If we must give our lives so that the galaxy endures, then so be it. The council was stunned when Elias revealed the plan. You cannot do this, Drixa shouted. You are condemning millions of lives. Elias's voice was calm. I am condemning millions to save trillions. That is the price of victory, Marak hissed, his anger uncontrollable. You are monsters. No different from the swarm. Elias looked at him coldly. We are different. The swarm consumes because it must. We fight because we choose. And we choose victory no matter the cost. Despite their horror, the council agreed. The fleets gathered near the galactic core, preparing for the final stand. The swarm came like a storm of darkness, blotting out the stars. Entire constellations vanished under its shadow. The fleets, led by humans, struck with everything they had. Planets ignited, suns exploded, moons shattered. The void became a sea of fire. For days the battle raged, longer than any war in memory. Council soldiers who once trembled now fought with fury, their courage reborn under human command. They no longer fought for survival alone. They fought to win. And slowly the swarm was drawn into the black cluster, pulled toward the abyss that the humans had prepared. At last, Elias gave the final order. The Oblivion weapons, ancient and forbidden, were unleashed. Space itself began to tear apart, collapsing into nothingness. The swarm screamed in silence as it was dragged into the void, its endless hunger erased. The fleets held as long as they could, but one by one they were consumed by the collapsing space. Ships vanished. Worlds disappeared. The humans fought to the last, refusing retreat until only the Resolute remained. On its bridge, Elias stood tall. This is our duty, he said quietly. Not to survive, but to ensure others can. And with that, the Resolute plunged into the abyss, carrying humanity's fury with it. When the collapse ended, silence filled the galaxy. The swarm was gone. For the first time in centuries, the stars were safe. The council gathered, their hearts torn between joy and sorrow. Humanity had saved them, but humanity was gone again, swallowed by the void. They gave everything, Chancellor Ariel whispered. And yet, I fear them still. Archivist Valarn's eyes glowed faintly. Fear them, yes, but never forget them, for they are the most dangerous species. And if they return, the galaxy will never be the same. The galaxy was silent. For the first time in centuries, the shadow of the eclipse swarm no longer spread across the stars. Entire sectors that once burned with endless battles now floated in uneasy calm. The black cluster had devoured the enemy, and with it the humans who had led the war to victory. But victory carried a strange weight. The council, though saved, stood uneasy. Humanity was gone, sacrificed to the void. Their memory lingered like a flame, bright, terrifying, unforgettable. Chancellor Ariel walked through the great halls of the council capital. Statues of warriors and leaders from dozens of species lined the corridors. Yet her eyes kept drifting toward the empty space at the center. There was talk of building a monument there for humanity, the most dangerous species. She remembered the last words of Captain Elias Vare before his ship plunged into the abyss. Not to survive, but to ensure others can. The words echoed in her mind, both noble and frightening. Humanity had fought with unmatched fury, but their choices had scarred the galaxy. Whole worlds had been sacrificed. Moons had been shattered. Even suns had been destroyed to win battles. Yes, the swarm was gone, but so was much of the galaxy they had sworn to protect. At the Great Assembly, voices rose. Councillor Drixa spoke first. We must remember the humans with honor. Without them, none of us would be alive. They gave everything. Councillor Marak, his scales flaring, snapped in reply. Honor? Do you call destruction honor? They left scars that will never heal. What they did to win was no different from the swarm's hunger. They fought with fire and ended as ash. Good riddance gasps filled the chamber. Many councillors bristled, offended by his words. Yet some nodded quietly. Ariel raised her voice. Enough! Humanity is gone! We owe them survival, whether we love them or fear them. But one truth remains. They showed us what we were blind to see, that survival requires more than hope. It requires will. Even when the cost is unbearable. The chamber fell silent. None could deny it. Meanwhile, Archivist Valarn moved alone among his archives. His hands, old and trembling, touched the ancient records. He had kept humanity's story hidden once, believing the galaxy was not ready. Yet now they had seen for themselves. Velarn whispered to himself. The most dangerous species. And yet the most willing to sacrifice themselves for others. What a paradox they are. As he worked, he uncovered transmissions left behind by human commanders during the war, recordings of their battles, their strategies, their words. He began compiling them into a single archive, a codex of humanity. The galaxy must never forget, he said softly. Not the destruction they brought, nor the salvation. Both truths must remain. But whispers spread among the people. Stories of human bravery grew into legends. Children of many species played war games, pretending to be humans who charged into battle without fear. Soldiers carved their tactics into training manuals. Even leaders began to quote their strategies. At the same time, fear deepened. Merchants spoke in hushed tones, wondering what would happen if humans ever returned. Would they rule instead of save? Would they look upon the galaxy as prey instead of ally? Some even claimed that humanity was not gone, that deep within the black cluster, their ships remained hidden and waiting. One day, Chancellor Ariel visited the ruins of Sector 19, one of the many regions sacrificed during Elias's campaigns. Broken worlds drifted in silence, their surfaces scorched. She walked across a shattered colony site, her guards keeping distance. The survivors, those who had escaped before the destruction, looked at her with bitter eyes. You let them burn us, one survivor spat. You followed the humans. You abandoned us, Ariel bowed her head. I will not deny it. We chose sacrifice. But know this, if we had not, you would not even have the chance to speak those words. The swarm would have consumed everything. The survivor said nothing more, but his silence was heavier than anger. Ariel left with sorrow in her heart. Humanity's choices had saved trillions, but had broken countless others. How could such wounds ever be healed? Years passed. The galaxy slowly rebuilt. Worlds scarred by war began to bloom again. New alliances formed, inspired by the unity humans had forced upon them. Armies trained with human tactics, fleets designed weapons based on human blueprints, and leaders studied human strategies. But with each passing year, the fear grew too. Some worlds began to arm themselves more heavily, preparing for the day humanity might return. Others demanded the banning of any technology that humans had shared. Debates filled the council chambers endlessly. Humanity is a ghost hanging over us, Drixa said during one heated meeting. We cannot let that ghost rule our decisions. They are gone. Let the memory fade. No, Ariel said firmly. Memories guide us. Forgetting them would be the greatest mistake of all. One night, Velarn called Ariel to his archive. He looked frail, his life nearing its end, but his eyes still shone. I must show you something, he said, handing her a crystal data shard. It is a recording from the Resolute, the human's last ship. Ariel activated it. A flickering image appeared. Captain Elias, worn and tired, standing on his bridge. If this message survives, then perhaps some of us did not, his voice said. But know this, humanity did not come to rule. We came because you called and because we could not ignore the cry of the desperate. Do not make us into monsters in memory. We were what we had to be so you could live. The image faded. Velarn whispered. That is the truth I wish remembered. Not just their fury, but their choice. Ariel felt tears in her eyes. I will ensure it, old friend. The galaxy must remember all of them, the light and the dark. Decades later, when the wounds of war were less raw, the council unveiled a monument at the center of the capital. It was not a statue of human warriors with weapons raised. Instead, it was a simple flame of crystal glowing endlessly. At its base were words carved in every known language. To the most dangerous species. They saved us not with mercy, but with will. May we never forget the cost. People gathered from across the galaxy to see it. Some bowed in respect. Others glared with quiet resentment. But none could ignore it. Yet even as the galaxy moved forward, rumors persisted. Explorers at the edge of the black cluster reported strange signals. Ghostly transmissions, fragments of human voices calling through the void. Some claimed they were only echoes, relics of ships lost in the collapse. Others whispered that humanity had survived somehow, deep within the abyss, waiting for the day when they would emerge once more. The council dismissed these stories as superstition. But among the soldiers, the idea spread like wildfire. One day, they said, the humans will return, and when they do, the galaxy will change again. In the end, the truth did not matter. What mattered was the echo they had left behind. Humanity had shown the galaxy both hope and fear, both courage and destruction. They were remembered not as saints, not as monsters, but as something greater, something beyond simple judgment. They were the species who had stood when all others had fallen. The species who had fought the impossible and won. The species who had sacrificed themselves so that others could live, and so their legend endured. Centuries later, when new threats rose in distant corners of the galaxy, young commanders would whisper the same words Captain Elias once spoke. "We are not here to survive. We are here to ensure others can." And the flame of humanity burned on, an echo in the stars, eternal, unstoppable, for they were, and always would be, the most dangerous species.